Hey everyone, we are here with Nick Troxel from Troxel Fitch Law Firm. So, quick bio from Nick. He was born and raised in Lincoln, Nebraska. He earned an undergrad degree in accounting from University of Nebraska in Lincoln, where he developed a passion for entrepreneurship. And then that interest actually led Nick to attend law school at the University of Colorado. He graduated there 2017. He's a sports fanatic, lifelong Nebraska Cornhuskers football fan, and an avid snowboarder. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Tyler.
Awesome. So yeah, let's get right into it. I would love to kind of dive into a little bit of your story there. So you gained a passion for entrepreneurship in your undergrad, right? And so how did that kind of come about?
Absolutely, yeah. So one of the things is when I initially started college, I was playing football at a smaller school in Seward, Nebraska,
Okay.
and always kind of I've always loved football, and I had a string of injuries that ended my playing career like any other athlete that doesn't end up going to the pros, right? It happens
Yeah.
at some point. So at that point, I said, hey, I always knew I wanted to be a business owner. So the plan was I'm going to get a degree in accounting, then I will get a law degree, practice law, make money, and then start a business. In my mind, being a lawyer would allow me to make a high income and then be
Yeah.
able to both learn kind of the building blocks of business as well as having a high paying job
Right.
to be able to execute throughout undergrad. Excuse me. I got connected to a professor at the University of Nebraska named Sam Nelson, and he was the leader of, or the kind of head of the entrepreneurship department at the University of Nebraska, and there was
Okay.
a business pitch competition there.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of the connection to Sam and those classes, as well as then I went into this business pitch competition. And actually, the idea that I pitched was revolutionizing pre and post workout nutrition with cannabis. So
Oh, interesting.
like CBD protein shakes
Yeah.
was the big thing, which this
Huh.
was 2014.
Yeah.
So now you kind of see CBD becoming a big thing, and
Right.
maybe I should have done that. But anyways, law is fine. So that was
Nice.
really where, once I did the pitch, I got into the finals. At that time, this was long before the Farm Bill, which legalized non-psychoactive hemp.
Mm.
So, it was too hot of an idea in terms of risk for most people to accept.
Yeah.
So I didn't end up winning the competition, but I had interest from people, and it was kind of like, hey, this was cool
Yeah.
piecing together. I've always been, I'm a good person, but I also have not always been great at being an employee or listening to, I'm more of a leader than,
Right.
someone who takes instruction well. So that always suited me best.
Right.
Now, then I came to law school, and I thought that I could scratch that itch by working with entrepreneurs.
Hmm.
Thought maybe, yeah, I'll just go work for a law firm and I'll still be able to get that, passion going and working with other passionate entrepreneurs. But over the course of, law school and getting out, law school is an interesting place. It's quite a bubble, where things are, hey, you do this, you go work for a firm, you bill a bunch of hours, right? And
Yeah.
until you get out of that, you don't really see the rest of the world always. And so once we got out, my law partner and I, we actually were roommates in law school, and we used
Okay.
to have coffee in the morning and just pace and talk about our schemes to
Yeah.
be business owners and things like that. And so he was
Nice.
actually the first one to take the dive.
Okay.
Or to be willing to take that dive. He chipped away at me for like 6 months about, hey, let's do this together. And, I'm like, well, I'm going to go work for one of these big law firms. They pay a lot
Yeah.
of money, probably more money than I've ever thought I was going to make.
Right.
But eventually, it's actually, it's kind of interesting how I finally came to the conclusion. It was quite a soul searching process, but kind of what was the cherry on top. I was always very conservative with my money, had never had a credit card, had never had debt. I had gotten through law school living very tight financially and things like that. I had gotten
Awesome.
scholarships.
Yeah.
But after I took the bar, and I was kind of in this place where I just didn't feel like any of the job offers were making me feel alive, right? It didn't
Yeah.
stoke that fire inside of me.
Right.
I actually took out I took out my first credit card ever, maxed it out. I went to Greece by myself for 2 weeks.
There you go.
And basically just zenned out and sat on the beach drinking wine and eating gyros and
Yeah.
watching the sunset. And it was like, hey, I think I got to do this. So came
Wow.
back, and it was, I think I told you in the intro, we started it basically 5 years ago. It was November 3rd, 2017. So it's kind of crazy to look back now, but here we are.
Yeah, there you go. That's awesome. And so yeah, you mentioned, this big idea competition and so, yeah, what made you, was it kind of like the job security of law that made you still want to go to law school? Like, why didn't you just kind of drop out and work at more like a, techie kind of startup to fill that kind of entrepreneurial void?
Yeah, the big thing for me was law school seemed like a great means to a new frontier. Growing up in Lincoln was fine, but it's not, and it's can still be great for some people. But I always knew that my path was to leave, and for me, I was on the edge. I was ready to do something else at times. I actually applied to the Peace Corps of all things. I was like, hey, I just got to get out of here.
Yeah.
But my dad was actually the one who said, hey, we got to at least kind of go look at some of these law schools. And when I went into Boulder, if you've ever been to Boulder, you take Highway 36 and you at one point you kind of get to the top of a hill and you look down and you see the mountains and Boulder's there. And It was a perfect April Colorado day, and it just seemed like the right path. I think sometimes in life, the arrows point to a certain location, and you gotta just go with it.
That's awesome.
And so that was really the biggest thing. Is for me, it was like I saw law school as the best path to get out, to have a new frontier, to have a new opportunity, and so that's the choice I made.
That's awesome. I love it. And so yeah, obviously you mentioned, you did law school, and then, so what percentage of people, I guess, go out of law school and, fresh out of school, start their own law firm?
I don't know for sure, but I'd probably say less than 1%, because it's kind of crazy. Everybody really tried to talk us out of it. When we did it, they said, hey, look, guys, this isn't a good idea. But we did it anyway.
Nice.
And just like anything else, right? Now that we're successful, a lot of those same people want us to come back and speak about it. And we're flattered to do so. But it's been interesting for us, because as we've done this, we've had the opportunity to talk to other people who are considering it. And we always strongly encourage them to do so. We say, hey, look, you can do it. I'll give you my exact playbook of how I've done it.
Awesome.
But ultimately, it always comes down to execution. And there's one other guy that I've met who did it. A couple other people who, a couple ladies from our law school class as well who have their own thing going. But they had started it kind of later on out of law school.
Gotcha.
But a lot of people just, the fact of the matter is most lawyers are pretty risk averse. That's kind of the type of people the law attracts. And the practice of law trains you to think about everything that could go wrong. So that's why I think you just don't see a lot of it. Right. Whereas, that's one of the reasons why we say we are a law firm built by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs, because it's not just the action taken of starting a business, it's the mindset, it's the spirit. And for us, we've always identified more as entrepreneurs than as lawyers.
Wow, that's cool. I like it a lot. That's awesome. And so then I guess you mentioned, so Josh and you are now partners in this company. Did you guys both, decide to kind of take the leap, or did you mention that Josh kind of took the leap first?
Yeah, no. So what I meant by that was, so when you graduate law school, you basically you're not a lawyer when you graduate law school. So we graduate early May. You have to study for the bar exam for like 12 to 14 weeks. Then you take the bar exam. Then you have to wait 2 months to get your results.
Wow.
Then you get your results, and then it's another 30 days until you get sworn in. So we graduated May 10th, and
Yeah.
we weren't sworn in as attorneys until October 30th.
Wow.
And so it was that time. He had decided earlier on in that timeline that he was going to start his own firm once
Gotcha.
it all started.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I made the decision to join him prior. I probably decided beginning of October 2017. So it took some time, but then, I remember we walked to the closest coffee shop on the morning of November 3rd, and we formed the entity with the Secretary of State and put together our operating agreement and let it rip.
Yeah. That's exciting. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, congrats on all that. So,
thanks, man.
One question I have on that is, do you feel like you have kind of typical roles like CEO, COO? Because you're kind of a mix, right? You're a law firm, so like you have this expertise, but then you're also on the side kind of building up a company, right? Building up a startup almost. Like how do you kind of define your two roles?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's been an ongoing process. Certainly, when we first started, we didn't know who would fit better into what roles.
Yeah.
I had, with the accounting background, we had always, other than I would say me having the accounting background, I was always more of the numbers guy. I've always handled the financial side of things. As we've kind of developed the firm over time, we've just kind of seen where people have expertise, right?
Yeah.
And so now at this point, I would say I have more of the CEO role, just in terms of the high level, the business side of things, in terms of executing marketing plans, executing, just more high level things like, hey, should we hire? Do we need to build processes? Do we need to look at, whatever it may be? I would say that Josh is more of like, kind of operations, handles more of like the employee management. Now,
Gotcha.
Right now we don't have many employees. And so, it's more, he's just more executing legal work. And I mean, it's a big thing, right? It's the balance of, it's like, well, ultimately that's what brings the money into the law firm. So it's kind of a cool thing about law is that you don't need that many roles. I mean, it's important to have someone who at least guides the overall business direction. Yeah. But you don't necessarily need, too many, ultimately it's like, hey, get legal work, bill legal work, make sure the legal work's good, right? Right.
That's cool. And so, I mean, kind of going along that vein, I know there are startup companies that are trying to, put a tech spin, I guess, on the law, on the law firm business, I guess, in general. So like one that we've worked with is Savvy Legal. I don't know if you've heard about them.
No, I haven't.
So it's kind of similar to, what would it be similar to? I mean, it's not like LegalZoom or anything like that. But basically like it's your database, right? For all of your files, all of everything, your corporation documents, all of that. And then it's kind of like task-based almost. Like I can purchase a credit to file for an LLC, right? And then if I ever need help, it's kind of like an added fee to access an attorney. So, I mean, have you guys ever had any interest in going into more of a, I don't know, I guess more scalable solution? Or have you guys always been happy with more of, I guess, kind of the lifestyle business where it's probably just you and him going to be partners and grow as, your client base grows?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're open. Right now, we've decided that we do prefer to just keep it the two of us. Right now, we're focusing more on building out our processes and our own efficiencies to be able to do that a little bit better. Right. The thing with the law and trying to scale, right, is that, at least for us, we much prefer to work with kind of highly sophisticated clients. I mean, and that's not in terms of money in your pocket or size of the business, right? There can be a business that's brand new that hasn't done anything. but people who understand kind of, hey, you want a long-term relationship, you want somebody who's on your team, things like that.
Yeah.
A lot of the providers like, LegalZoom, or I'm not sure, I haven't heard of the Savvy Legal, but it sounds similar. It's like, I think it does a good job of providing some legal guidance, but it's just less in terms of like that ongoing, hey, this is my guy, I can call him. Because ultimately what we do is risk mitigation, right? And I always say it's kind of on a spectrum, right? There's a lot. It's not to say like, hey, there are certain things, certainly, hey, you need certain things, right? If you're going to operate a business, you really need an LLC in place or some other limited liability entity. Otherwise, you're just really exposed.
Yeah.
But do you need a 100-page operating agreement when you haven't made any money? Probably not.
Right.
Things like that, right? And so it's just having that balance of seeing where you are in your life cycle, how voluminous your legal needs to be.
Right.
But certainly, I mean, it's always there. I mean, I think for me, I see law as more of like, hey, I want to keep executing, doing good work for people. And I would see scaling more being inside, other business opportunities, other investments, things like that. I feel like law is more I see of helping people, number one, staying tapped into, other passionate entrepreneurs, and then, just providing a means to, execute and stay tapped into the entrepreneur. But I don't necessarily ever see myself having 100-lawyer law firm or something like that. Because then you get disconnected, and ultimately, right,
For
it's
sure.
like, I am the brand, Josh and I are the brand, and we want people to be able to call us and trust us, and not just say, hey, this is the guy that started last week.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like that a lot. So, and I mean, I like the idea of, this is my guy, this is, somebody I can call any time of the day, right? And so, I'm sure there are people looking for, my guy kind of thing. So how do you vet that person? How do you find somebody that can be with you long term? Because like I've experienced that with like CPAs, for example. Like I really want an accountant that we can have a long term relationship. So if you're listening and you are one, reach out. But like we've struggled to find somebody that is like invested in us to like at least some degree. Like we don't need them to be obsessed with us, but like at least want that long term relationship. So for the attorney side, like what's the best way for anybody in the United States to look for an attorney that they know will be with them for the long term? Are there any like markers, that we could look for?
Yeah. I think the biggest thing, I mean, obviously I'm going to be biased towards kind of smaller law firms.
Yeah.
I think the one thing that you have, especially as a small business owner, I mean, I think you just kind of want your legal to somewhat line up with your own business size. These big law firms, they're great, they're fine, but they're probably, one, going to cost more, and two, you're dealing with someone who, one, you probably, they might move up the chain unless your business grows. They might not be the one on your matter anymore, or, different things like that, right? And so I think the biggest thing is, my opinion, you look for a kind of smaller boutique, small business law firm, so, and then you just go meet in person. I'm a big meet in person kind of guy. I mean, I think that for this type of trusted relationship, that's what you want.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's, it's somewhat of a give and take in that it's like, we want to have a long-term relationship with everybody we do business with. But there is the trade-off of, hey, look, ultimately, we do this for a living as well. And so, you have to balance, being there for people with like, hey, I can't give free calls to everybody, because then that's what I'd spend my whole day doing every day, at least not every day. And so, but I would say it's just feeling it out, right? It's like, once people work with us, we're pretty much typically always happy to answer quick questions, 10-minute phone calls, things like that, because that's what we value.
Right.
But it's just all a balance. So in terms of looking for it, I would say number one, you look for a kind of smaller firm where you can actually meet the people, where you could connect with them. And then just kind of feel out, hey, do I trust them? Do they communicate well? Do do they empathize with my situation, or are they looking at this strictly as a, law school fact pattern or something like that? I mean, I think that's one of the things that we value. That's one of the things that's paramount for us, is that we want to make sure it's not just, hey, this is a legal issue in the abstract. It's like, hey, this is somebody's life and somebody's business, and how can we give advice that not only touches on the strictly on the legal risks and things like that, but kind of contemplating reality and where that fits in, like legal risk, this is the opportunity, things like that.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, no, thanks for answering that one. And so tying into what you just said about kind of the risk. So obviously you work with all sorts of different clients, but what are like the most common things you see that businesses are missing? Like what's the most common reason somebody should have an attorney that, right now they might be oblivious? Like, I don't even know that I need that. What's like the most common reason I would go to an attorney as a small business owner?
Yeah, I would say so. It somewhat depends on the level of, I guess, how many businesses this potential entrepreneur has been involved with. If it's a brand new person who kind of totally doesn't know the concepts of like legal entities and limited liability and things like that, I think the number one thing is, we always say, and I think 9 times out of 10, it's best to just start with an LLC. I mean, there's ways to convert and make tax elections, things like that. But for most small businesses, before you're making money, that's the simplest way. I think most people know to at least get that far. I think the thing that I see people really slip up on right out of the gate is having documents, right? Having an operating agreement, especially when you're with a co-founder. And it's always the balance, right? Because we are advising in risk mitigation. And so, to some extent, you don't want to, you don't need the $10 million company package when your company isn't worth anything. But you do have to, you have to have these hard conversations when things are good, because as soon as money gets involved or disagreement, you're not going to be able to have the conversations. So having that conversation, having a robust operating agreement to outline who owns what, how is decision making split up, how's money split up, what happens if there's a disagreement, what happens if one of you dies or becomes disabled, what happens if one of you stops fulfilling your duties. You have to address those things up front, because otherwise you're trying to address that with later on is how you end up in long, expensive litigation. So I'd say that's one of the big ones. Another one that we what would I say? Another one that I would say we probably see a lot of is just in terms of using your entity. A lot of times people just think that, hey, once I have the entity in place, that limited liability is foolproof. And it's not, right? I mean, you have to make sure you're separating your bank accounts, you're not commingling funds, you're making sure that you're paying business expenses out of the business account, you're signing contracts on behalf of the business, you're marketing the business, not yourself individually. Otherwise, you run the risk of people being able to come after you personally anyways. And then I would say also one big one we see as well is kind of just signing agreements at the outset a little bit willy-nilly. So leases, franchise agreements, contracts with vendors or anything like that, where we see a lot of people who get very excited about, hey, I started the business and I really love this space, or I love this franchise idea, or I love this, whatever it is, right? It's like, hey, well, this guy said he would, do this. And people feel like they're a little bit, well, I got to take it because I don't have anything and I don't have anything to risk. And, you see, I mean, we've had clients who, came to us after the fact. It's like, well, I signed this franchise agreement that made me sign a 10-year lease, and now I can't, the business isn't making money. And it's like, you get to the point where it's kind of like, hey, I think you're going to have to declare bankruptcy because, you're tied into some of this stuff. I mean, unfortunately, that was just one of the worst case scenarios that we saw. But I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, and I think that is why working with an attorney versus doing kind of the legal Zoom stuff, I think that's where the big value add is, because if you can find somebody that you trust, that you can feel like you can go to, then when these things come up and you have to give them a quick five, like, hey, should I, sign this lease with that I have no idea what this says,
Right.
but I'm going to sign this 50-page contract that commits me to something for the next 5 years. Your attorney can say, hey, maybe we at least look at it a little bit. Maybe we at least kind of make sure we understand what's going in here.
Yeah. Awesome. No, I appreciate that. And that's definitely something I've noticed is I think we've been pretty good about that in our businesses, but it does feel weird. And I think maybe that's why some entrepreneurs shy away from it, is because we are nothing today. And we might get to this, goal, this value, but that's, months or years off. So why worry about it now? But like you said, it's so much easier. Either way, it's going to be a hard conversation, especially with operating agreements and things like that. So might as well have it in a situation where money isn't super involved and a ton of money isn't on the line. It's so much better to have those conversations when that's not weighing, over your head.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, to me, you hit the nail on the head in that if you believe your business is going to be successful, then you have to operate like it's going to be successful.
Right.
If you're not willing to invest, if you're not willing to, it's just a simple fact, right? If you're not willing to invest time, money, and effort into making sure things are buttoned up on the front end, then do you really have the belief that it's going to take to get you through the dark days of entrepreneurship? That's what I tell people a lot. It's hey, look, ultimately it's not all about needing to spend all your money just to get it going. But if you don't believe in the idea enough to, make sure things are going well, then, I mean, frankly, what are you doing, honestly? It's kind of if you don't believe in it that much, then it's going to be tough when the first big issue hits the fan. Yeah,
totally. Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you, Nick. Those
Absolutely.
are the main questions I wanted to ask. So I have two kind of fun questions to wrap things up.
Cool.
What's one software that you can't live without that not many people know about? So kind of an obscure software that you love.
I guess I don't know I think a lot of lawyers know about this, but Clio is huge for us. It's our practice management software, so it tracks our time. It holds all our documents. We send bills out of there. We collect payments out of there.
Nice.
The other kind of softwares we use that are invaluable. I'm sure a lot of people know Calendly. But that's how, we run all our scheduling through that.
Nice.
So Calendly, Clio, probably one that non-lawyers would know either. We use Practical Law that allows us to really, it's a legal, basically research tool.
Gotcha.
But those are really, we don't use a ton of Clio does so much of it, right? It can do document automation. It can do payment processing. It's a CRM. That's the one we really use a lot.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, no, thanks for that. And so this is my second question. I've never asked a lawyer this, so I'm curious, or an attorney. How many unread emails do you have in your inbox?
Right now?
Yeah.
Let me see. It's funny because I think I just cleaned up my email. I had 15 minutes right before this. So nice. I have 3 right now. And
there you go.
2 of them are spam. One of them is from the interior designer that I'm buying a new townhouse. And
oh, nice.
I was thinking about hiring an interior designer, and now I don't know. Maybe that's the prices I'm getting quoted are a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
$200,000 to do it, and it's
what?
Holy shit.
Oh my gosh, that's ridiculous. That's insane.
Yeah.
Well, cool. 3 emails. That's great. That's solid.
And some of them are spam, right? It's it's funny. I would tell entrepreneurs, if you're anything like me, one thing that you should just do is unsubscribe from all these emails. I know that you want to I know that you don't want to, so you have the
Right.
satisfaction of going through and deleting them and feeling
Yep.
like you're accomplishing something, but
It's
you're
not worth
really
it.
not, and
Just
you're
waste
wasting your
time.
time.
Yep. Totally agree. Yep. I love it. Well, cool. So yeah, just to kind of to wrap up, what is your call to action for the audience? How can people reach out to you or get involved or use you as an attorney?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that just to keep it simple, so there's not too many avenues, the best way is to go to our website,
Cool.
www.troxelfitchlaw.com, and from there you'll see our main phone line as well as an ability to submit a form through our website. The reason that
Perfect.
that's the best avenue is that we don't want to waste your time, and
Yeah.
so if you reach out that way, you'll be able to touch base with our, basically our kind of office manager, Paige, who knows enough. She really knows the kind of work we do, and
Yeah.
she also knows a lot of great resources for the kind of work we don't do. And so
Cool.
you can touch base with her first. She can say, hey, this seems like it could be a good fit, or no, here's somebody who'd be better to talk to. And if your matter is something that we can help with, we schedule you for a free 15-minute phone call, just to talk about it with Josh or I. You get to talk to a real attorney to talk about your actual legal issue. We don't charge you anything, just to see, hey, is this something we could help with? And from that 15-minute phone call, we're typically able to figure out, is this something we could help with? This is approximately how much it would cost you, and here are kind of next steps to proceed. And so that is the best way. And then once we have that call, you're able to get a really clean and clear picture of, hey, this is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to cost. Do I want to move forward?
Perfect.
And we
Awesome.
do everything electronically to really make it easy for people. Everything comes.
Oh, that's good.
Scheduling is Calendly,
Yeah.
everything, e-signatures, e-payments, everything like that. So it keeps it really simple to where people don't have to do, you can do pretty much everything from your phone.
Yeah. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Nick. Really appreciate you being on
Absolutely.
today.
Yeah. Thanks, Tyler.
All right.